It was the winter of 1964. A young man was sitting alone in a small room in the dark. The woman he loved was gone. The future he had planned was gone, and he didn't know what came next, or whether anything came next at all. And then someone turned on a radio in the apartment next door, and a song came through the wall. He sat there and listened to the whole thing without moving, and when it ended, he sat a little longer in the quiet that followed. And then he got up, went to the kitchen table, and did something he had never done before in his life. He wrote a letter. 3 pages, written at 2 in the morning, with the radio still playing. He wrote things he had never said to anyone, about the woman he had lost, about the room that felt too quiet, about the song that had just come through the wall and done something to him that he couldn't explain. He addressed it to Sam Cooke. He sealed the envelope. He almost didn't send it, but he did. And that decision, made at 2 in the morning in a dark kitchen in the winter of 1964, changed everything that came after. His name was Daniel. He was 23 years old. He had come to the city 18 months earlier with the particular optimism of someone who believes their life is about to begin. He had found a job. He had found an apartment. He had found, in a coffee shop on a Tuesday afternoon, a woman named Ruth who laughed at something he said and looked at him afterward in a way that made him believe the optimism had been justified. And then, 8 months later, Ruth was gone, and the apartment was too quiet, and the optimism had nowhere to go. Sam Cooke, in the winter of 1964, was carrying more than most people knew. Vincent was gone. The Shreveport arrest was still fresh. A Change Is Gonna Come had just been released, the song he had been afraid to put out, the song that had cost him something to make. He was 33 years old, and he was tired in a specific way that fame does not protect against. And then he read Daniel's letter, and something in it reached him.
The song that had come through the wall that night was A Change Is Gonna Come. It had been released just weeks earlier, in the final months of 1964. Most people who heard it heard a civil rights anthem, a song about the long, exhausting, dangerous work of demanding what should never have needed to be demanded, a song about marches and arrests and the specific courage required to keep walking forward when everything around you said to stop. Daniel heard something else. He heard a song about loss, about the specific feeling of lying in a dark room when the future you had built has come apart and you cannot yet see the shape of what might replace it. He heard, "It's been a long time coming," and he thought, yes, 8 months is a long time when every day feels the same. He heard, "But I know a change is going to come," and he thought, I don't know that. I don't know that at all. And somehow the fact that the song knew it, that the voice on the other end of the radio said it with such complete, exhausted, hard-won certainty, made it feel for the first time in 8 months like something he might eventually be able to borrow. He had never written a fan letter before. He had never written to anyone famous, had never seen the point of it, had assumed that letters sent to famous people disappeared into an indifferent machinery and were never read by the person they were addressed to. But at 2 in the morning, with 3 pages in front of him and the radio still playing, the question of whether it would be read felt less important than the question of whether it needed to be written, and it needed to be written. He described the apartment. He described Ruth, not what she looked like, but what it had felt like to be in the same room as her, the specific quality of her attention when she listened to someone, the way she made ordinary Tuesday afternoons feel like something worth remembering. He described the 8 months since she left, not dramatically, not with self-pity, simply accurately, the way you describe something when you have stopped trying to make it sound better than it is. He described the song coming through the wall, what it had done to him, the specific thing it had reached in him that nothing else had in 8 months. He folded the 3 pages carefully. He put them in an envelope. He addressed it to Sam Cooke, care of RCA Records, New York. He held the sealed envelope for a long moment, feeling for just a second the full absurdity of what he was doing. A 23-year-old man in a small apartment mailing 3 pages about a woman named Ruth at a coffee shop Tuesday to the most famous singer in America. He almost laughed. He almost put the envelope back in the drawer. He mailed it in the morning. He did not change his mind.
The letter arrived at Sam Cooke's office on a Thursday. It was in a stack of perhaps 200 other letters, the ordinary weekly accumulation of correspondence from people whose lives had been touched by the music. Sam's assistant handled most of them. This one was not most of them. Something about the handwriting, careful, slightly uneven, the handwriting of someone writing quickly at an unusual hour, or the weight of it, 3 carefully folded pages, meant it reached Sam's actual desk. Sam read it on a Friday afternoon, between a meeting about SAR records and a phone call he was already dreading. He read it once quickly, the way he read most things. Then he set it down. Then he picked it up and read it again. Then he set it down again and sat for a long time looking at nothing in particular. Sam Cooke received thousands of letters. He could not respond personally to all of them, not even to most of them. He understood this and had made his peace with it years ago. The machinery of a career as large as his required that most things be handled by other people, that his personal attention be rationed carefully, that certain distances be maintained between the performer and the people the performance reached. But something about Daniel's letter refused the usual rationing. It was the specificity of it, not the loss itself. Sam had received letters about loss before, letters that described grief and loneliness and the particular exhaustion of trying to keep going. But most of those letters described loss in the abstract, in the large terms that people reach for when they are trying to say something important and don't quite trust the small details to carry the weight. Daniel's letter was not like that. Daniel's letter described a coffee shop on a Tuesday afternoon, a laugh, a specific quality of attention, the way ordinary things become irreplaceable only after they are gone. Sam recognized something in that. He had written a change is going to come from a similar place, from the specific, not the abstract, from the particular, not the general. He had written it from the inside of something real, and Daniel had heard it that way. Had heard it as something private, something addressed to the specific interior of his specific life, rather than as a song about anything large or public. That was what Sam had intended. That was what he had hoped for when he finally, after months of hesitation, let the song go out into the world. He called his assistant in. He said he needed a few minutes alone in the studio. He had something he wanted to record. The people who were in the building that afternoon later said they noticed Sam going into the small recording booth alone, without a band, without an engineer, without any of the usual apparatus of a session. One of them asked if everything was all right. Sam said yes. He said he just needed a few minutes, and he closed the door.
What Sam Cooke recorded that afternoon was not a song. It was not a performance. It was something closer to a conversation. His voice, speaking directly, without accompaniment, without the apparatus of production around it. He spoke for perhaps 3 minutes. He said things that he did not write down first and did not plan. He talked about the song and what had gone into it, not the political context, not the civil rights movement, not any of the large public things that had been written about it. He talked about the private things, about what it feels like to write from the inside of something real, about the specific courage required to put something true into the world when you are not sure the world is ready for it. He talked about loss, about the particular exhaustion of continuing to believe in change when change feels impossibly far away, about the coffee shop Tuesday, not Daniel's specifically, but the idea of it, the way certain ordinary moments become the measure of everything, the way you don't know something is irreplaceable until it is gone. And then, at the end, he sang. not the full song, just the final verse and the final chorus, quietly, without accompaniment, in the particular way you sing something when you are not performing it for anyone, but are simply letting it be what it is. He had the recording pressed onto a small acetate disc, the kind used for personal recordings, not commercial release. He had it packaged carefully. He included a note, 3 sentences, handwritten, and he had it mailed to the return address on Daniel's envelope. Daniel received it on a Tuesday. He did not have a record player in the apartment. He had sold it, along with several other things, in the difficult months after Ruth left. He borrowed one from a neighbor, a woman named Mrs. Patterson, who lived 2 floors up, and who handed it over without asking why, and who later said she heard music coming from his apartment that afternoon for the first time since she could remember. He sat down on the floor of his apartment with the borrowed record player, and he put the disc on, and he listened. What he heard was Sam Cooke's voice, speaking to him directly, not to an audience, not to a crowd, to him, to Daniel, 23 years old, sitting alone in an apartment in the winter of 1964, having written 3 pages at 2 in the morning to someone he had never met and never expected to hear from. He listened to the whole thing without moving, and when it ended, he sat a little longer in the quiet. And then, for the first time in 8 months, he cried. Not from sadness, from something else, from the particular feeling of being heard by someone who had no obligation to hear you and chose to anyway, from the recognition that the thing he had written at 2 in the morning had reached someone, had mattered to someone, had been received. He kept the disc for the rest of his life.
Sam Cooke died on December 11th, 1964. He was 33 years old. Daniel learned about it the way most people learned about it, from a radio, from a newspaper, from the particular shock of news that arrives before you are ready for it and that doesn't become real immediately. He went to the drawer where he kept the disc. He took it out carefully, the way you handle something that has become more precious than it was when you received it. He sat on the floor with the borrowed record player. He had bought his own by then, a small thing, nothing special, and he played it again. Sam Cooke's voice filled the apartment, the same voice that had come through the wall in a winter night in 1964, the same voice that had made him get up from the dark and go to the kitchen table, the same voice that had received his 3 pages and had sent 3 minutes back. Daniel sat on the floor and listened, and when it ended, he sat a little longer, and then he did something he had not done before. He called his mother and his brother and 2 friends he had not spoken to in months, and he told them about the disc and about the letter and about the coffee shop Tuesday and about Ruth and about what A Change Is Gonna Come had done to him when it came through the wall in a winter night in 1964. He told them all of it, for the first time. Because Sam Cooke had taught him something without meaning to teach it, that the things you carry alone are lighter when you put them into words, that writing a letter at 2 in the morning to someone you have never met is not foolish, it is sometimes the most honest thing a person can do, that a voice on the other end of a radio can hear you even when it doesn't know you exist. Daniel kept the disc until he was an old man. He played it every December 11th, not from sadness, from gratitude, for the voice that had come through the wall, for the 3 sentences in the handwritten note that he had read so many times the card had gone soft at the creases, for the change that had come, eventually, the way the song had promised it would, not all at once, not cleanly, not without cost, but steadily, in the particular way that real changes come, one day at a time, one Tuesday at a time, until the apartment that had felt too quiet felt gradually like somewhere a person could live again. If this story moved you, make sure to subscribe. Every day we tell the stories behind the music, the private moments that shaped the legends, and the ordinary people they reached. Hit the like button if you believe that sometimes the most important thing a voice can do is make one person feel heard. And tell us in the comments, has a song ever reached you at exactly the right moment? Because A Change Is Gonna Come reached Daniel in the winter of 1964, and Sam Cooke heard him back. We'll see you in the next one.